Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to today's presentation. We'll be exploring a fascinating story titled Bepin Choudhury's Lapse of Memory. In this session, we'll delve into the details of his forgetfulness and its implications. So, stay with me as we uncover the story behind this intriguing case. Let's get started. Let's take a moment to explore the key themes that run through this story: memory, identity, and empathy. These elements are crucial because they shape how we understand the characters and their experiences. We see characters seeking confirmation, whether from friends or doctors, highlighting the importance of trust and validation in our lives. One powerful lesson we've learned here is the cost of indifference, how overlooking others' feelings or dismissing their concerns can have serious consequences. It also shows us a mind in turmoil, filled with doubt and confusion, which adds depth to the narrative and makes the story more relatable. Moving on, I want to emphasize the lasting impression of a clever plot, how it sticks with us long after the story ends. The chapter about Choudhury's elaborate scheme reveals the intricate planning behind his actions and the impact it has on everyone involved. A seemingly ordinary Monday turns into an extraordinary encounter, reminding us that unexpected events can happen anytime. The twisting plot, involving confrontation and desperation, keeps us on the edge of our seats, illustrating how quickly situations can escalate. And of course, we can't forget the unforgettable prank, an element that adds humor, but also underscores themes of deception and perception. All these points connect back to the overall theme of how complex human emotions and actions shape our stories. They remind us that beneath simple events lie deeper truths about ourselves and others. Let's take a closer look at this story, which is a witty exploration of how easily our perceptions of reality can be shattered. It's a fascinating example of how fragile our sense of stability can be when faced with unexpected events. Satyajit Ray's Bepin Choudhury's Lapse of Memory dives deep into the psychological distress experienced by Bepin Babu, a man whose life is usually very orderly and predictable. But everything changes when a stranger makes insistent claims that throw his world into chaos. This story is both humorous and poignant, as it explores themes like memory, which is often taken for granted, and identity, how we see ourselves versus how others perceive us. It also highlights the unexpected consequences of our actions and assumptions. Now, focusing on the first key point, the unforgettable prank, we see how a simple prank can shake someone's sense of reality. It's a reminder of how easily perceptions can be manipulated and how this can lead to a cascade of confusion and self-doubt. This connects to the overall theme of the presentation because it shows how perception shapes our reality and how fragile that perception can be when challenged, whether through humor, misunderstanding, or unexpected events. Today, I want to share a story about a day that seemed perfectly ordinary, but turned out to be quite extraordinary. One Monday, as usual, Bepin Choudhury was going about his routine, visiting Kalacharan's bookshop, a place he loved for its cozy atmosphere and endless adventures on the shelves. He was a man who appreciated order and enjoyed his weekly ritual of browsing for new thrillers to dive into. But that day, something unusual happened. A stranger named Parimal Ghose approached him, and what made this encounter unsettling was how familiar Ghose seemed. He claimed they had met years ago, in Ranchi, back in 1958. Ghose even recounted vivid details about Bepin's supposed trip, talking about a fall he suffered and a visit to a mental hospital. This was bizarre because Bepin had no memory of such events, yet Ghose's detailed account made it seem very real. This encounter disrupted Bepin's routine, raising questions about reality and memory. This story highlights how even the most predictable routines can be upended by unexpected, mysterious encounters. It challenges us to think about what's real and the power of our memories, an important theme in our overall exploration today. The thought of memory loss was truly terrifying for me. Bepin, a man who always prided himself on having a sharp mind. Suddenly, I found myself second-guessing every memory I had, every routine I followed, and every aspect of my daily life. It was as if my very sense of self was slipping away. This encounter with the stranger left me deeply disturbed. My meticulous nature couldn't reconcile the strange claims he made with my own blank memories. I started to feel a creeping sense of dread, questioning not only my memories, but also my sanity and the very fabric of my identity. What troubled me most was that I had no recollection of ever visiting Ranchi, a place I had always longed to see. Yet, the details given by Parimal Ghose were so specific, so vivid, that dismissing them outright became incredibly difficult. It's this growing anxiety and confusion that really forms the core of the Ranchi riddle, highlighting how our minds can sometimes deceive us or leave us with unsettling doubts. After feeling further perplexed, I decided to consult Dr. Sarma, who is a physician. He examined me thoroughly, but surprisingly, he found no physical ailments or obvious health issues. Instead, he attributed my symptoms to stress and a lack of rest. While that explanation made sense, it offered little comfort and only deepened my confusion. Eventually, my desperation grew stronger than my pride. I realized I needed to seek external validation, so I cautiously approached Dinesh. To my horror, he not only confirmed the Ranchi trip that I couldn't remember, but also provided additional, very specific details about our shared experiences there. He even mentioned a fall I had endured, which I had completely forgotten. This escalation of details heightened my panic. I knew I had to verify what I was experiencing. My first thought was to reach out to Dinesh Mukherjee, an old friend I trusted. But even as I considered this, I hesitated, feeling embarrassed at the idea of admitting I might have a lapse in memory. For someone of my stature, confessing such a thing was deeply unsettling. So, convinced that returning to Ranchi might help him recover his lost memories, Bepin decided to go for it. He believed that seeing familiar sights and hearing familiar sounds could jog his recollection. However, the trip didn't have the effect he hoped for. In fact, it only made his confusion and despair worse. It was a deeply unsettling experience for him. In a desperate attempt to find some clarity, Bepin reached out to a friend in Ranchi. But what he received was devastating. His friend confirmed that Bepin had never actually visited Ranchi. This was a shocking contradiction to what Ghose had claimed and what Dinesh had corroborated. It threw Bepin's mental state into further disarray, making him question everything he thought he knew. Meanwhile, Parimal Ghose kept pressing the Ranchi details. He cornered Bepin Babu with these questions, which only deepened his distress. Each new story or anecdote from Ghose chipped away at Bepin's resolve, making him feel more desperate and vulnerable than ever before. This relentless pursuit added to the twisting complexity of the situation, heightening the overall sense of confrontation and desperation that surrounded Bepin's journey. Today, I want to talk about a letter that truly revealed all. Choudhury, feeling deeply hurt and resentful, sought revenge because Bepin had been cold and indifferent when Choudhury desperately needed help finding a job. Bepin, caught up in his own busy life and routine, had dismissed Choudhury's pleas, showing a callous disregard for his friend's struggles. Just when Bepin's confusion reached its peak, something unexpected happened. He received a letter from Choudhury himself. And in that letter, he uncovered a shocking truth. The entire Ranchi episode was not what it seemed. It was a carefully planned fabrication, an elaborate practical joke orchestrated entirely by Choudhury. This revelation changes everything and ties into our overall theme of perception versus reality. My revenge was sweet, and your lesson bitter. Perhaps now you'll remember the importance of kindness. A taste of your own medicine, Bepin Babu. Choudhury's elaborate hoax served as a harsh but effective lesson. By exploiting Bepin's predictable routines and his isolated nature, Choudhury forced Bepin to confront the consequences of his own insensitivity. The prank, born out of a desire for retribution, ultimately highlighted Bepin's lack of empathy and his self-centered existence. This slide really underscores a key point in our overall message. That indifference and insensitivity can lead to unintended but impactful lessons. Choudhury's actions remind us that sometimes, a well-placed lesson can be more powerful than words. And it's a reminder that understanding and empathy are essential in our interactions with others. This slide really highlights how unreliable and manipulable human memory can be. It shows us how easily our memories can be influenced by suggestion and external factors. When we look at Bepin's story, it becomes clear that his certainty about his past is actually fragile. It's easily shattered. This demonstrates that memory isn't a perfect recorder of events. Instead, it's vulnerable and can be distorted over time. This point connects directly to our broader themes of memory, identity, and empathy. Our sense of who we are relies heavily on our memories, but if those memories are so easily swayed, it makes us question the stability of our identity. It also reminds us to approach others, memories and stories with empathy, understanding that they might not always be entirely accurate. Overall, this illustrates just how delicate our grasp on the past can be, and why it's important to recognize the fluidity of memory in understanding ourselves and others. As we move to this slide, let's focus on Bepin's memory crisis and how it really shakes up his sense of self. You see, Bepin has always seen himself as a rational, meticulous man, someone who relies on logic and precision. But when his memory starts to fail him, that carefully built self-image begins to crumble. It's a powerful moment because it forces him to question who he really is. This crisis pushes him to confront a hidden aspect of his personality, a part he perhaps didn't want to acknowledge before, his lack of empathy. It's interesting because, in trying to understand himself better, he uncovers vulnerabilities that challenge everything he thought defined him. This connects to the broader theme of identity and self-awareness. Sometimes, our sense of who we are is based on a certain narrative we tell ourselves. But events like this remind us that our self-image isn't fixed. It's dynamic and can be reshaped when faced with adversity. So, Bepin's experience highlights that true self-awareness involves recognizing all parts of ourselves, even those we might prefer to hide. It's about understanding that our identity is complex, and that confronting our weaknesses is a vital part of growth. This slide really highlights how indifference and a lack of compassion can have serious and often unexpected consequences. When people ignore the emotional or moral implications of their actions, it can set off a chain of events that spiral out of control. In Choudhury's case, his revenge, although it might seem extreme, is directly linked to Bepin's past actions. It shows us that neglecting empathy or understanding can sometimes lead to pain and suffering not just for the person directly involved, but for others as well. This ties into the larger theme of the presentation, reminding us of the importance of compassion and how its absence can have far-reaching, sometimes tragic effects. Let's take a moment to consider Bepin, a man grounded in logic and reason. He's someone we might assume would never be easily swayed. But what happens when clever manipulation comes into play? Despite his rational mind, he's pushed to believe something completely irrational. This example really highlights an important point. The line between what we know to be true and what we are convinced to believe can be surprisingly thin. It shows how easily perception can be manipulated, even by someone who values reason. This ties into our overall theme, how our beliefs are often more fragile than we think, and how easily they can be influenced by external factors. It's a reminder to stay aware of how easily our sense of certainty can be challenged or even overturned. Satyajit Ray's storytelling mastery truly shines through in this story. It invites us to reflect on how memory shapes our sense of identity and reminds us of the vital role human connection and empathy play in our lives. The story highlights that even the most careful and meticulous individuals can be vulnerable to psychological manipulation, which is a powerful cautionary note. And it also emphasizes that kindness, often overlooked, holds incredible significance. This overall message ties back to the broader theme we've been discussing, the importance of understanding human nature, the power of perception, and the subtle ways storytelling influences our perceptions. In the end, it leaves us with a lasting impression of how a clever plot can truly resonate and impact us profoundly.